Hi everybody, Megan here, the faithful fibromyalgia warrior, and if I was to move just a smidge, you'll see there's one of my puppies, well at least the back end of him, his tail wagging away, photobombing this particular recording, and over far in the corner, looking as calm as you can imagine, let me see, oh, and there's our greyhound Billy. Hello Billy! There he is. There's Billy. What a handsome boy. He is such a cute puppy. And where's Birdie? Oh, there's Birdie. Hey, Birdie. Hi. Hello. And there's greetings and hugs and kisses and sloppy puppy dog kisses from this crazy guy. This crazy guy. So, ever have a moment in life where you feel like you just have something on your heart that you absolutely have to share, that you can't keep it to yourself. And whether that might be talking about, God, whether that's talking about, some new program that you've started. Sorry, let me just close the door a bit here. Whether you're talking about some great book, whether you're talking about some amazing insight you've had to how the human body works, or something you've learned about stars and the planets, or whether it's simply understanding the truth according to God and the Bible, which is that we are incredibly made, we are cared for, we are looked after. Whatever it is. I don't know. I'm sorry I'm saying I'm a lot here. I'm just excited. And the reason I'm excited is just because I've been reminded, especially over this past week, of how much I have in this life. Now, before I was carnivore, before I even was keto, I was still blessed. I was still looked after. God was still watching out for me. He was working in the background. He was doing everything for a purpose and a reason. I just didn't know what that was at the time. Now I can look forward and say, you know what? I had to go through my challenges. I had to go through the worst of my health. I had to go through the worst possible pain of my conditions in order for me to go, my way is not working. I don't have it all figured out. I don't have all the answers. And what I've been trying is simply not resolving the issues. I had to reach that point before I was able to stop and realize that, you know what? I need something better. I need something more. And of course, the truth of it was I needed to get back to God. But I did not know that initially. I soon realized that what I needed the most was a trust and a closeness with God. And although I have been able to joyfully get that back as of 2020, I realized today a few things. And although I would never have asked for COVID, I got some of the most amazing blessings because of it. Our family, of course, like many other people's, we were in lockdown, not just here in England where we live, but also in Canada, in the States, throughout Europe and the rest of the world. Everybody experienced it in different levels and different degrees, of course. And we learned to get closer as a family, but it also became the perfect circumstances where I realized that nobody had control except for God. And I had to give up control, or what I thought was control, of my own life and say, you know what? God is in control. Because at that point, what else was I going to do? I had no idea if COVID would be over, when COVID would be over. And with so many underlying health issues, I was at higher risk of developing complications. Now, fortunately, I did not actually even get COVID until after vaccines came out. But it was a time of fear. And today I was listening to a beautiful choir cover version of the song When You Believe, the duet that was done by Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey several years ago. And there's this one line where it talks about how hope is frail but hard to kill. Where hope is frail but hard to kill. I don't have a great singing voice, so please forgive me. And it reminded me how true it is. Now this is from the animated movie that was about the story of Moses. And of course, how he went through trials, his faith was tested, the hope of the Jewish people, of the Israelites, was fading, but it never completely went away. And I realized in myself that was how I knew God was still with me and working. I may not have had a strong devotion at that point from my side of things, because all I was able to focus on was my ongoing pain and inflammation and my own internal struggles. And it wasn't until the world seemed to unite through COVID. Yes, there were those who were hoarding, toilet roll and water and things like that. But there were so many more people who were helping neighbors, who would sing outside their homes to encourage those who couldn't go out. Things like this, not just Italy or places like Greece or even in, East Asia where it started, but throughout the UK, people were trying to get groceries for their elderly neighbors, for their family members who could not go outdoors or could not be around other people because either they were sick or they were at risk of complications if they got sick. And that was a time when we maybe were losing a bit of hope and faith. And there was a song that I love to listen to, but I've been really listening to more recently, and it is a Christian song. It's called Waymaker. And there is I don't know who does it originally, but there's a cover version done by the Potomac Valley Church of Christ, and the song is sung, the lead singer, I suppose would be the term, is a woman by the name of Tasha Archer, and she and her husband are both ministers there. She has an incredible voice, and so glad we got to meet her online. They came and sort of visited our church virtually, and then they came last year just before Christmas for a visit, and we got to know them a little bit better. But part of the verses of that song are, even when I don't see it, you're working. The Waymaker, God. Even though I don't see it, He's working. Even though I don't feel it, He's working. And it reminded me those times where I didn't necessarily feel God was close by, He was. He was close by. And even when my hope was very frail, and even when my faith that things would improve or that I would ever feel better because of what I was dealing with my pain and inflammation and illness and getting fatter and sicker and realizing that the medications I was on may have helped me a little, but they weren't actually reversing and stopping anything. God was still working. And it was going to be the perfect circumstances for me to go, right, I'm on thyroid medication and it might be bringing my thyroid to a normal place. However, my metabolism is still completely demoed. It's completely messed up. And instead of, thinking I could start losing weight, I was continuing to gain weight to the point where, and now I was eating stuff that was inflammatory and that was horrible for me, that was converting immediately into fat, and my triglycerides were so abnormally high before I began keto and quickly into carnivore that my triglycerides got so high that I was at the beginning stages of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And when you start to develop fatty liver disease through alcoholic consumption or other reasons, that's really bad, because that means now your liver is not going to be able to process things optimally. That means you're not going to be able to break things down effectively. It is the organ that takes what you've eaten and allows it to be separated out between what can be used and absorbed and what is waste. And if that's not functioning properly, that's really bad, and that means that all the other parts of your body are going to be affected, because the nutrients that they should be getting, they're not, because everything is no longer processed correctly through the liver. So I was afraid. I started to cut back on the overload of fruit that I was consuming. I was cutting back on sugary treats, but there was that part of me in the first couple of months of COVID, so like March, April, where my attitude was simply, I don't care. I might die. I'm going to eat what I want. Who cares about tomorrow? And I was desperately wanting to feel God in my life. And there was some part of me that knew He was still there, but that I would have work to do. And I'm so thankful that even if my faith was frail, even if my hope was frail, even if my faith was very, very small, maybe even just the size of a small mustard seed, it was enough to allow me to be led by the Spirit. And I will forever be grateful for that. Why? Well, that's easy, because the Spirit led me to seek out and search out the ketogenic diet. As I've shared in other videos, I did try paleo for a couple of weeks. And my husband did it with me. His sister was told she had Hashimoto's and she would need to lose weight. She would have to control her symptoms. She would have to start thyroid medication if she didn't get things under control. Now, for her, she was diagnosed with Hashimoto's early on. And so by following a paleo approach for her Hashimoto's, she reversed all the symptoms and she avoided the thyroid medication. For me, my TSH levels looked like they were normal. However, they weren't functioning properly because my thyroid was not producing enough of the T4 hormones, which then get converted into T3 hormones, which are the hormones that actually do all the work. So problem was for me was that even if the part of my brain that was telling my thyroid, hey, you got to make some more T4s here, even if that was working okay, my thyroid itself was the issue. So for me, I had to take the thyroid medication to begin with. My level of T4 was so low, it wasn't even on the range of accepted levels. So, they do a range of for lab tests of what they deem as acceptable for health. And 3 months in a row, my T4 levels were so low they weren't even on the range. They weren't even on the range at all. Now, my GP figured, well, but the TSH levels look okay. I insisted on having that tested and the T4s tested. And I'm so glad I did, because by the time March of 2020 came around, I had already been put on statins, because not only were my LDL levels really high, which I now know is not necessarily a problem, but my triglycerides were horrendously over where they should be. They were double what the maximum number was for acceptable. So let's say they want your triglycerides to be somewhere between 0. They want your triglycerides, they want you to aim for 2 millimoles per liter, with 3 being a maximum amount. Well, I was at 4.83. I was almost double the maximum amount of what triglycerides were deemed acceptable for good health. And even though the statins helped kind of bring them down a bit, the problem was my liver had stopped functioning effectively, because I was starting fatty liver disease. Why? Because of all the carbs and sugar, well, the refined sugar and all the carbohydrates that were getting dumped into my liver and becoming simple sugars. That was the problem. And everything works together, right? So your thyroid affects your metabolism, and your gut affects, has an effect between, there is a connection between your mind and your gut, and healthy mental health and brain activity, and signals that are sent out to your gut or your different organs, or wherever your hormones come from. That all is dependent on having a good healthy gut and the organs and etc. as well. None of my innards were healthy. I had huge amounts of fat around my midsection and adipose fat. And that was the fat that was around my organs in particular. And that was not a healthy place. That was not a good thing. But I was trapped. Here I was, we're in lockdown. Even if I didn't have fibro and horrendous pain, I still am not supposed to be lifting anything that's even slightly heavy. I'm not even supposed to be, bending or twisting a lot, because I would end up probably prolapsing my disc once again, and that could end up becoming permanent. It could even be bad enough that I would be paralyzed this time. And so the gym was out. Never mind the fact all the gyms were closed because we were in COVID. And so here I had this whole cycle of anxiety and inflammation and pain, which fed the anxiety, which fed you get the picture, right? Which kept the IBS active, which kept the Fibro Fog, flaring out of control. And yet, through all of that, the one thought I kept having, and this was absolutely the spirit in me, the spirit that dwells in all that dwells in all Christians, was tapping me, kind of tuck on my brain, if you will, saying, "It'll be okay. There's a plan. Don't give up hope." And I'm glad I didn't, because if it was not for COVID, I don't know that I would have been sitting around and trying to figure out how I could lose this weight without going to the gym. I would never have even bothered to look into it. I would have made excuses. Well, I can't do this because I can't exercise at the gym. I can't work it off. So there you go. And even if I restrict, it doesn't matter, because after 35 years of being bulimic, my metabolism was shot with all the restricting and the binging. And so I knew it wouldn't have mattered. And I never would have been able to get a hold of the depression that would overtake me, or the anxiety that was just gripping me constantly. We also had a lot going on with our 2 sons. The one was 17 at the time. Our older son had just turned 20. One was, one was starting college. One was finished college. And so there was a lot of just life stuff going on that constantly kept me anxious because I couldn't see a way around or out or through, and I wasn't ready to relinquish that to God. But the reality is, when I took a moment, so things chugged along, and when we got to May and we were told that we would be coming out of lockdown, at least to some level, my husband and I were both at a point of, yeah, you know what, we have put on some weight. Let's do something together to get the weight off. And when he spoke with his sister, they were just, talking about how is she, what about COVID, how is she doing? Oh, hey, you look great, sis. What's your secret? She talked about being told she had Hashimoto's and she would have to lose some weight to get things under control and get some of that managed. And that's when she recommended to him a book that she read, a paleo approach. And so he said to me, look, let's do this together, right? It's helped her. Let's do it. So we did. And very clearly, it was obvious to me that was horrible for me. All the dark leafy greens and the nuts and seeds and all the other crap that I can't do anything with. So I knew that wasn't going to be helpful. And just when I was ready to give up hope of losing any weight, losing any fat, and getting rid of any pain or inflammation, I got that tap in my brain of, hey, wait a sec, keto. Remember keto? Chris and Christy did that. So my brother and his wife tried it years back to help with some of her arthritis, inflammation, and pain. And it helped. So I started it. And honestly, within a week or two, I couldn't believe the difference. I was between mid-June and the end of August, by the time of my birthday that year, I was down 30, maybe 35 pounds, thereabouts. Now, one of the things that came to light for me was that because I had to make sure that I was not going over those 20 grams of carbs per day, total grams of carbs, which is what ketogenic is. It's, eating fatty sources of animal protein, maybe some dairy if you can tolerate it and it's full fat, some cheese or sour cream, yogurt, maybe heavy cream in your coffee if you choose to drink coffee, things like eggs, right? That's keto. And you can have some non-starchy vegetables if you like and if you tolerate it, as long as your total carb intake is not above 20 grams per day. And that was based on what Dr. Eric Westman was doing to help his diabetes patients. So that was his approach. Now, what I came to realize is that I do not tolerate any vegetables or fruit of any kind. Anything I would eat from the plant realm had an almost immediate effect on my gut and on my inflammation, and it was horrible. So for me, I thought, well, so now what? I can leave off. What do I do instead? And that's when I was going through the rabbit hole of YouTube, and I found the podcast by Joe Rogan where he went carnivore for a time and how great it was. Somebody I found on YouTube early on also tried carnivore for a month, and she found some great benefits. And I came to see that, I already am basically zero carb, which is great. So this is helping. And it took another week or two after that. So by the end of my birthday, when I kind of went, wow, wait a minute. Have I really lost 35 pounds? I've never lost that much weight in such a short time ever in my entire life. Ever. Through all of my binging and purging and restricting and repeat cycles, Never had I lost that much weight. And of that weight, yes, a lot was water weight, but I also lost body fat. I couldn't believe it. I was like, holy smokes, what the heck's going on? Now, what I also recognized was that my brain felt alive in that I got my mind back. I wasn't forgetting everything that I heard and everything that was said. I could remember if I'd seen movies or not. I could read a book and remember it, months later and what happened in it. I got back the mind that I thought was lost in a drug haze for all time. I got it back. I didn't change my medications. I didn't stop my medications. And as far as my thyroid medication, for one, I'm not going to, simply because the thyroid medication is what brought my T4 production up, because my thyroid was not functioning properly. From there, it was my diet, I think, that helped it continue to function well. But my weight loss was not because of the thyroid medication. The fat loss had nothing to do with it. It just meant that the T4s are being made and eventually converted like they're supposed to be. So now they're well within the normal range. So if it's, say, a range between 12 and 22 millimoles per liter, I now am at 17.7, whereas before I was down as low as 10.9. Yeah. So now they're being produced like they're supposed to be, which is great. So that's gotten healthy. My thyroid function has improved. And I realized that depression that was there in spite of the antidepressants was gone. The anxiety that never went away, I actually felt it dissipate. Not always and not all the time, no. But as my brain fog went away and I got myself back and I got my brain back, I felt amazing. Why? Because I got myself back, but I realized I need God deeply. So my faith was no longer frail, like a flickering flame. My faith was now strong and invincible and brighter than, a bonfire, if I was to describe it that way. And I'm just so thankful for all of these things. And I have been, throughout. I was able to recommit to God, and my husband did the same. And we learned how to communicate and recommit on a spiritual level with each other, which is critical, I think, which is important. Absolutely. But more than that, and I think even more important than that, is the blessings of realizing how much I've been given. And there are days where I kind of think, well, now what am I going to do? Right? I mean, I'm so grateful. Yes, I'm not going to act as though losing all that fat and all that weight is not helpful. It has not been encouraging to me. It has. It absolutely has. I also found, though, part of the reason I switched to carnivore was because when I had to track all of my carb macros, I didn't worry about the other stuff, but the carbs I had to track daily, that tracking behavior became obsessive for me. And it was too much like my eating disorder of the past. And I knew that it was becoming addictive. And I knew that I could not keep doing it. I needed to do something else. Whereas now with carnivore, I know I get enough protein, and I'm getting lots of good fat. I eat when I'm hungry, and I stop when I'm satiated. And that has served me well. And that has helped with my pain reduction and my inflammation and everything. It's been fantastic. And on top of that, the joy of being able to clearly and without apology reconnect to God has been amazing and phenomenal. We built up a great relationship online, with other Christians out of Ottawa in Canada. But of course, there's a 5-hour time difference, and it's a 7-hour plane ride from here to there. So when we knew that COVID was going to start sort of easing off, if you will, when the vaccines came out, when we knew that people could start traveling and we were going to start meeting again in person, obviously it was not practical for us to think, oh, well, we're going to keep up with Ottawa, because we want to meet people in person. And so we've been able to, be a part of a community of faith out of East London. And it's been incredible. And it's been amazing. And I'm so thankful that this has all happened. But I know that none of this would have happened if COVID hadn't come when it did. Everything happens for a reason. And, getting to know somebody recently who is here, she's a refugee here from the Ukraine. Her husband is still back there, as the many of the women who have come over. That's the case. Their husbands, their brothers, their dads, they're still there. And I think how challenging I thought my life was. Well, at least I'm here, and my husband is here, and I get to see him every evening. She's been away from him. She went back to visit for about a couple months back. But otherwise, she's going for 2-month stretches of not being able to hold him and hug him and be there with him. They FaceTime all the time, but it's not the same. And yet, they're both Christians. She has so much faith in God that God is going to work something wonderful out, that it gives me no excuse, So that's what I was feeling today, that I felt like I need to share this. I need to say, yes, there are things that happen that are tragic and that don't make sense. But I also know God has a plan, and just because I don't see where it's going, it doesn't mean it's not going somewhere ultimately that's going to be the best for all of us. So that just reminds me of how much I need to be thankful for. What if our roles were reversed? What if I had come here from another country, not even speaking English as a first language, and yet faithful and joyful to be alive and to be a child of God? And I was spared that, but wow, her faith is such an inspiration. And it reminded me of, life is good. It doesn't mean to say that my depression isn't real. That doesn't mean to say my anxiety isn't real, or that my eating disorder past struggles were not horrible or challenging, because everybody's challenges or trauma is different. And so I am certainly not saying that those who are dealing with some kind of eating disorder, that's it. I mean, hey, at least you're not in the Ukraine right now. Okay. But that doesn't take away from the fact that was a hard time for other people. So for me, I don't know, I was just reminded of all the blessings that I've been given. And I've been given a lot. And I want to make the most of every moment of my life. And I've been wanting to do that ever since I reconnected and recommitted to God. That which was November of 2020. That's when I decided I want to fully recommit and devote myself again to God. So that my faith that was frail is strengthened. And I know that I would never have ever reached that point in my faith if my body wasn't physically healing at the same time. So, I don't know, bit of a long run on, but that is truly what I think is true. That is what I believe. I believe that is absolutely true. And so I make videos and I go live and I try to share my experiences with other people, not because I have all the answers. In fact, I really don't. You know, I'm not a health coach. I'm not a nutritionist. Thank goodness. Right? I'm not those things. But I can certainly tell you what my life was like and what things have helped and what things help keep me grateful going forward. I am truly blessed to be a Canadian living here in the UK, to have God working in my life, that I have electricity whenever I want it or need it. I'm free to say what I want. I'm free to express my opinions. I'm free to share what I believe with anyone who will want to listen without worry. And that is not the case in all parts of this world. So I want to take every moment I can to not only share what things have helped to heal me physically, and in so doing have helped with my pain and my mental health, but what things have helped heal me spiritually. Some would say spiritual is most important. And yes, obviously it is, because one day the physical will go away, will become something new, and who we are now will change. But I do think that our physical health, which plays a huge role in our mental health, is a very, 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 very close second. And we need all of those things to work together. I hope this is helpful in some way, you know, whether you want to eat lamb or beef or oxen or bison or venison, or maybe you want to go with pork and chicken, other poultry, eggs, maybe some dairy, anything that swam, crawled, walked, flew, anything that walked, crawled, slithered, swam, or flew, is something that can be put into the carnivore diet. So even if you have to choose, and particularly if you're in the U.S., if you have to eat the meat that comes from feedlots because it's what you can afford, it is still far, far better than loading up on things like pizza and popcorn and corn chips. Is it ideal ultimately? Maybe not, but it is a vast improvement over all the carby stuff that, you know, the industry would tell you should be eating. No. You can have organs if you like them. You don't have to. And if you are trying to heal and you have histamines, you maybe want to be careful there. You do not have to eat them raw. You do not have to eat them cooked or at all. But once you've healed, hey, if you feel so inclined to experiment and try them, go for it. I understand that sweetbreads, which is the thymus, I believe, as well as heart, are quite delicious. In fact, almost every organ that is available to eat tastes good, except for liver has the funkiest taste. That's what I understand. But if you want some more ideas or suggestions, you should totally check out Rebecca Heichman. Her YouTube channel is Tailored Keto Health, and she herself eats organs and has some good suggestions and recipes. She's worth checking out. But you don't have to have them. If you don't feel like it, you don't need to. So if that whole idea just turns your stomach, don't worry about it. Eat, as Dr. Ken Berry has said in the past, find the meats that you enjoy and that you can afford and start there. And then tweak it. Tweak as you go, right? See how that works. Again, even if it's not grade A pasture-raised beef, because, specifically I'm referring to the States, because we don't have really feedlots in Canada, in Europe, or places like New Zealand and Australia. because we simply don't have the population that the States does. Even that is far better than the processed carbs most people are eating right now. So even that, you will still find a difference, I would think. But I do this because I want to help, because I feel so much better. Does that mean I have fibro? No. That I don't have fibro? No, there isn't a cure for fibro, but most of my symptoms are gone. Certainly the brain fog is completely gone, which I never thought would be the case. And I think maybe over time, the pain will start to ease off even more. But for me, it's not just fibro, it's a combination of chronic pain from previous injuries, including a fractured tailbone at one point, torn ligaments in my knees from different accidents, like falling skiing, falling sledding. That is all compounded, right? And added up. And then the disc slipping and bulging out 9 years ago, was kind of like the final straw on the camel's back, right? But I do this because it's helped me, and I feel amazing. And I just want to share with everybody how great I feel. Yes, physically and spiritually and emotionally and mentally. And isn't that ultimately what we all want in life? So it's worth a try. That doesn't mean everybody has to do carnivore or that they even need to do it forever. But I plan to, because I feel great. And I don't ever want to go back to the other processed crap that got me sick in the first place. So I hope you find this helpful. I hope that this helps encourage you, maybe offers hope if you were feeling hopeless or that your hope was frail. I hope this might inspire you. And I really hope that you will please share this with everybody you can. There may be people out there who need to hear it. And not just me. I'm but a voice. You should, as I say, check out Rebecca Heichman at Tailored Keto Health. Other good people to watch for the science behind all this is Professor Bart Kay. Definitely check out his stuff. I also like Dr. Anthony Chafee. I also like Dr. Sarah Zaldivar. I also enjoy watching the videos of Professor Ben Bickman. These are all people with some great scientific background who also are following a carnivore approach to eating and have had healing and success. So if you don't believe me, that's fine, but hopefully you'll check them out as well and give it a try. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate all of the support. I really, really am so glad to have the ability to use this technology to try to share all this great information and the good news with as many people as possible. And for those of you who are Christian, amen. God is, even if it seems God is not listening or there, He is. He is absolutely working no matter what it seems like. So thank you. Thank you so much for all of that. And if you have faith or if you're a believer, that's awesome. I'm glad you're here. And if you're not, but you still want to hear more, cool. That's fine. You know what? This healthy way of eating is for everybody. And whether you believe in the God of Jesus or a different God, or you maybe just believe in nature or whatever it is, something greater than yourselves, cool. That's a great place to begin. And these health improvements and changes and all the blessings, you know what? They can help you too, regardless of if you believe in the God of Jesus or not. So thanks so much for checking out my video. I was going to keep it shorter, but then, you know me, my mouth tends to run away from me at times. So I'll call it. I'll call it now. Thank you so much for all of your support, your comments, your best wishes, your prayers, your love and kindness. And I will see you guys soon. Take care for now. Bye.